Well, hello, Tamara. How are you today? Welcome back into the chair, into the room.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's great to be back, and I'm excited about today's topic.
I know, I'm super excited, actually. I tell you what, it's one of your favourite topics, and I am looking forward to interviewing you, Tamara, about your planning days.
Yes, it is a bit of a passion of mine, planning days. Yes, I'm excited about today's topic.
I know it's a passion of yours, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, it's another planning day, and you're like so pumped and excited. But I must say you did them extremely well, and but
we did them. It was a team effort.
We did, but I coming into the business, I could certainly appreciate the importance of having them and what they are, and I'd love to share this with the listeners, and hopefully they can pick up some tools and some tips and implement them into their business so that they can have the great successes that we did with our team.
Absolutely.
So let's kickstart today's podcast on planning days. Tamara,
yes,
what is a planning day? Can you share with our listeners about a planning day, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they can take so many different formats. It's not one shoe fits all, and I think that's the great thing about them. It depends on the size of your business. You might have various teams within your business, so there's so many different ways to sort of do that. But essentially a planning day for me is a day out of the office. I will say out of the office because I think that's really important, that a group of people will get together from your business. It could be the whole team, or it might be part of the team, a particular division, and you look at how you can improve your business, but it's also a great opportunity for the business owner or owners or managers to share their vision. So I think it's a great way of finding out little bits and pieces about your business that you may not otherwise have the time to find out from your team, to basically set the business up for success moving forward. All those little changes that you make, those 1%ers along the way, this is where, for me, all that comes from.
So your planning days would be held at what part of the year, and how often would you have them throughout the year? Or
look, I think there's a few, again, no one size fits all, but traditionally we would have one at either the end of the year or the start of the year. I think I prefer the start of the year. I think by the end of the year, so in December, I think everyone's pretty exhausted and they're really just focused on getting through to Christmas. So I found the best ones are usually we would do them in mid to late January. And that was a good way to set yourself up for that year ahead. But the other time that we would look to do them is sometimes mid-year. So we might look to do 2 a year. And then that was a good way of planning for that financial year, as well as a sort of a check halfway through the year how you're going, based on what your plans were. In saying that, like, we have done them in the past when there was at one time that we had quite a few new people in our property management team, and we decided to take that team out of the office. There might have been 10 of them. Just a bit of a reset and to go through a few processes to make sure that we're doing the right things and that everyone knew what they were doing. So I think you can use them in different ways, but traditionally we've done them at least once a year in, say, January, and then mid-year.
Okay. You have mentioned a couple of times just briefly there that the importance of, taking the team or doing a planning day outside of the office. Can you elaborate for our listeners as to why that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
and also where you'd go.
Yes, yeah, good question. So if we were to take the whole team out, we would include our receptionist in that. So it was important then to find somebody to cover reception, and so we'd usually try and find a relation of someone in the office that was good on the phones and give them some scripts around how to answer the phones for the day and what to do. But the main reason that we do it out of the office is just so that you don't have that distraction, because, typically then you get a phone call, how do I fix this? Or this person's on the phone. Doesn't matter if you say no phone calls, you're going to end up having to run out of that meeting. Plus, I think a new environment, it's a more creative environment. The office that you're in all the time, I think you're less likely to be creative, you're less relaxed. So we would often choose, because we would sort of near the Yarra Valley, we're in Croydon, so we would often go to a golf course where they've got function facilities, or a local hotel. So a lot of the hotels, we had a Siebel down the road. There was a Sage Hotel, so we would hire a room there. But we'd also want somewhere where we could have really good breakout sessions, or ideally that you can access outside, because if you're doing them, say, in January, for instance, it's nice weather. It's nice to be able to go outside in the break, get some fresh air, or even if you're having breakout sessions, people can go outside and do that. So we did often find that golf courses were a really great way of doing it. Otherwise, sort of some, 4 or 5-star hotels, nice environment.
I think it sends a message to your team too that you mean business, and you're really wanting to set the business up along with them and as part of the team for the year ahead, and really share what your vision is, I suppose. But
100%. They take it seriously.
And less opportunity for disruption, I suppose, and people not turning up.
I think it's also a bit more relaxed. So we would usually do neat casual, like it wasn't like normal work attire. So they were feeling a bit more relaxed, a bit more casual, that they could feel like they could have input and things like that. It just changes things up a bit, the dynamics. Did
you ever get a little bit of pushback from staff that, maybe they were too busy, or how would you tackle that?
Yes, certainly. You always get, that element, and then some people are more into it, I guess, than others. But I think it just has to be a non-negotiable. If you want to be part of this team, this is what we do. And I think even if, we talk about inductions quite a bit in our boot camp that we're running, I think if you make it part of that induction, just say these are the things we do, it's a non-negotiable, so it's no questions, unless someone was on annual leave that was previously booked. And then at least we know that person couldn't attend when we're actually making that date, so we can make that decision. But it's a non-negotiable. You have to be there. You'd want to be on death's doorstep if you were attending.
Message clear.
Yeah.
Does it matter that you don't have, like, if you've got a planning day, or if you don't have a large team, like you and I had quite a few staff, so but what if it was a single person? Like, does it matter? Like, can you still achieve the same result and have successful planning days for a business?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's actually more challenging in terms of, I think often if you're a business owner and it's just yourself, you're less likely to take time out of your business to go and do these things. But I think it's even more important. So I think it's a matter of scheduling a day in your diary. And in fact, if I was an individual business owner, I would probably be doing it quarterly, where you take yourself out of your business once a quarter, go to a venue. It could be a hotel. There's a hotel near us that has, when I say hotel, it's, sort of a 5-star sort of hotel. They have like an open working space, or sometimes the councils do. Yeah. And you can just sit down there and spend the day. You might have to pay a fee potentially, or otherwise if you just order food at...
It's not your local McDonald's, Tamara.
No, I would say that's somewhere quiet.
Somewhere more inspiring.
Yes, too. That's it. Look, some people might be inspired by Macca's, but it's not really my thing. But yeah, I think you can definitely do it. But you need to actually, I think if you're doing it by yourself, like you would with a group, is have a list of things that you want to look at. And maybe as you're going through towards that planning day, start writing some notes of things you want to look at within your business. And you might even get someone there, like a business coach or a mentor, or someone to come with you for part of all of that day as well, so you can work through things.
I think that's a really good idea, because it'll give you some accountability too, I suppose.
Yeah,
and making sure you're getting what you want out of your time, out 100%. Of the business, to work on the business. I do have a question. What is the main purpose of the planning day? What are you wanting to achieve out of that, and how is it beneficial for business owners?
Yeah, look, another good question. I think it's different for everyone, and I think this is the great thing about it. I think you need to one of the things we would do would be just say, okay, this is the date of our planning day. We know that they're really useful, and leading up to that, or once we decided on the date, because that's always a big thing in finding a venue, then it's about, okay, what do we actually want to get out of this planning day? And that's going to be different for every business owner and for every planning day. So I think that's actually a really important question to ask yourself. What are the outcomes you want from this? Is it that your team's a little bit not quite gelling at the moment, so you need to put some team building things in there? Is it a bit of training. So what is it that you want to get out of that planning day? But certainly that is something that you should be really clear on before you set your agenda, so that you as a business owner get the outcome that you want from the day.
And I think from our experience, we had different areas. So we had a sales team, as well as a property management team, as well as an admin and accounting. So, and not all planning days, I think sometimes we used to split them up to make sure we were really targeting what areas in our business that we needed to focus on. So I think that's a really good point. And sometimes we'd have two of them. Sometimes we could do a whole group one, but making sure you know exactly what's on your agenda and going from there.
Yeah, and I think it's what's going to work best for you as a business owner in terms of what getting the result you want, but also from the team. What is it that you're wanting the team to achieve? And is that doing a whole group one because you need to bring the team together to gel them? Or is it that, okay, we actually just need to get some more information from each department? So we might do one for one department, another one for another department. And we would usually then do that one day after the other or 1 week after the other, so that that we're still quite close.
I appreciate too, some of them would cross over, so some of them might need to be in both if they were split.
Yeah, for management, definitely.
And that leads into my next question about the most or the topics, the best topics that you would cover, or you did mention you plan your agenda. So I think if we were looking at that, how would you, what would be the next step, and how would you work out, or what topics would you
want to cover? Yeah, I think for me, once booked the planning day, got the date, decided what the outcomes were that I wanted to achieve from that planning day, I would then actually just plan out the agenda and work out how much time I wanted to spend on each sort of part of the day. So some topics that I would often cover, these wouldn't necessarily do all this in every planning day, but just as some examples.
Sure.
Firstly, I would probably want to have a look, if it was an annual one or a 6-monthly one, have a look at the past 12 months and see, how you're going, how you're tracking compared to what your goals were. If you had KPIs for the business and individuals, how are you tracking as a team? And then the vision for the year ahead, or the 6 months or the quarter or whatever it is. So what's your vision moving forward? And it might even be, I know in some of the planning days, we've, as a team, come together and planned out a bit of a mission statement, or what our goals are. So sometimes you as a business owner will say, well, this is what we want to achieve, this is our goals. But at other times, maybe you want some input from them and say, look, this is what we're thinking. What are your thoughts on this? And get their feedback, because you might feel that it's good for them to have some input so that they have more ownership over that mission statement or those targets or whatever it is. So again, that's just understanding what it is, what you're wanting to achieve. So review your the past year or the past period, the vision for the period ahead. And then you might want to have a look at potentially some challenges. So you might want to open up the room. And I'd like to give them, if I want the team to present or come up with some information, I might give them some information in lead up to the planning day and say, hey, have a think about what areas of the business you think we can improve. So when you come to the planning day, I want you to have a few ideas there. So I'd give them the heads up, because that gives them a time to have a think, to chat to their teammates, and to actually bring something valuable to the table. It shouldn't be all the owner of the business or the managers in the business doing the whole planning day. The idea isn't for us to then just tell them what's happening. It's to get them involved in the business and actually give them a voice. And it's exciting for the team when they start to see, oh, that change or that improvement in the business, that was because of what I said. They feel really part
engaged,
of that team. Yeah, absolutely. So it might be looking at what challenges the team are having, or what challenges or issues they are seeing within the business. And I think you have to really make sure at the start of the day, you say, look, this is a positive day. It's not about, and depending on your team culture, so depending on your team culture, this isn't to be a negative thing where everyone can just bag out and start being negative about the business. This is, okay, let's be constructive. If you've got some ideas on, look, this is a bit of an issue, this is maybe how we can improve it. So to come with that right positive mindset. These planning days are more than just a planning day. These planning days actually help embed your culture, create your culture. So it's really important that you're clear on the tone, and it is a friendly, fun, positive day. So you've got to have a bit of that in the day as well, which we can talk about a little bit after, and maybe some things that you can do that are a bit fun.
Yeah. And I think you want people to really engage but feel comfortable enough to share their thoughts. So I think that's really important that you do absolutely set that tone.
Make it safe, a safe place.
A safe environment and there's no bad ideas or silly ideas. And I think you touched on earlier, maybe you may have a new staff member, or, you know, so there's a lot of experience under their belt. So, you know, sharing those ideas and throwing them around is
100%.
And ensuring that they certainly feel free to do that is vital.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think obviously in a structured way. So one of the things we would do, we called it a curiosity. Now this came from Brian White, Brian from the Ray White Group, who was the chairman there, still very much runs the show. But he had this thing about having getting people to be creative and come up with ideas. So we would give everyone an opportunity to come up with an idea. We might say it needs to be something to do with a marketing idea, or it could just be an idea in general, depends how much free rein you want to give them, and they need to present that to the team. They might have 5 minutes literally on the clock. Everyone presents an idea for up to 5 minutes, and then we pick out which ones we want to implement in the business in the next 6-12 months, whatever it might be. And that was a great way of getting people really engaged and involved. And even I know within, you know, when we were with the Ray White Group, that was how a lot of the big changes within the group would happen at even a corporate level, because the corporate staff would do that. So, you know, these are things that big businesses are doing, but you can still do it within your business. And it really gets people engaged and creates a really positive culture within your business. So it's not just about a planning day, it's about culture. It's about giving people a say and being a strong leader in your business.
Let me ask you, did you get any really out there ideas?
I think there was. I shouldn't say. No, I'm not going to. No. There were some interesting ones.
Did you share with the team that there's a budget we need to?
Yes. No. But yeah, so that's one of the things, they're doing something creative. Sometimes we do a case study. So I know we did one once on customer service. It was a story or a case study, like you kind of did at uni or high school, where you'd read a case study on something, and there was one in particular about a hotel chain. It was all about customer service, and then it was coming back and seeing what ideas we could get from that case study. So that was something, a little bit of reading that they had to do beforehand. Again,
is that from Oxford?
Yeah, I think it was
Harvard
or something. Yeah. So so something like that you could do. It may be that you want to look at some processes within your business, particularly. So this can be a few things. It could be sometimes between departments there can be a few process issues, like a bit of roadblocks. So it's a good time if you've got a few departments together, if there's some roadblocks, to kind of talk it out, because then they can understand everyone's viewpoint, and you can kind of sort the process there and then, rather than going, this department sorted it and now we're just going to hand it over to you. Yeah. So that works quite well. But also on a smaller scale, we would often do that with property management.
But I do think it's also good for the team as a whole to understand how one little thing could be bottlenecking, but causing major issues for them. But they wouldn't have even thought about it, because they're not in that department. So
well, we had a few issues at times with people following processes around administration and getting things in a timely manner, and they just thought, we're annoying them. But it actually stopped another department's whole job and getting things on time, and we would get, calls from the corporate office, why is that not in? And we're like, we're still waiting on the agent to put it through. So once they sort of start to understand the issues that their lack of eagerness to do paperwork might, follow the process. There's a reason for it, and it's selfish for you just not to do it because you're not ready yet. So that would be something. We'd also often have guest speakers. It's good to break it up a little bit, because as much as we love hearing our own voices,
it can be a bit boring.
So trying to get in some guest speakers on a particular topic. We had different ones. We had a psychologist, we had motivational coaches, we'd have people in from different software companies or the corporate office. The software companies might explain some new technology or some new things that are coming that we thought would be exciting for the team to learn about. so all sorts of different people. So getting in a guest speaker is a good idea. And also I think doing little breakout groups during the day where you might give them a little project to work on. So maybe you might say, okay, here's a topic, come up with some ideas around, an online marketing concept, for example. And then 4 groups would break out and come and they get what someone would present, and then you pick the best idea that you're going to implement or something along those lines. So the little breakout sessions are good for team building, but also just to keep people interested.
Yeah, fantastic.
What else do we have? Wellness is a big one. I think that's more and more important. So looking at how people are coping in the workplace, obviously don't like to harp on about COVID, but that's certainly left some challenges there for people. So just talking about things that you can either be doing within your workplace or they can be doing within themselves, or have someone to come in and talk about mental health issues or how to deal with stress, whatever it might be. So sort of wellness might be a topic that we cover in different ways depending how the team was going.
I think just on that, I know for property management in particular, through COVID, you did mention it was a challenging time, and I think we had to add some extra tools for the toolboxes for our staff because people were just different and we weren't used to it. So I know that we certainly spent a lot of time investing into assisting and helping the team deal with how people were speaking to them, the demands, and because they needed to understand that, obviously there's a lot of financial burden at the moment, and people are really, well, back then I should say, but even now, but understanding that there's other things going on for them, not to take it personally and take a step back, and then how to handle that.
Yeah,
so I think that was a great forum to deliver that as a team and let them know as business owners that we had their back and that we did support them and ensure that they had.
And there were times that you and I would jump on the phone to a particular client here or there and just say, hey, do you realise how you spoke to that, our team member was not okay. And if you're going to continue to speak to them in that way, you're not going to be able to continue business with us. So that had our back. And sometimes, usually, the problem that they were going on about, or that person, was not actually the problem. They had personal stuff going on, and they would often apologise, and I think they respected that. So you do have to have your staff's back. It is part of your culture. But it is also asking the questions. Maybe your team member was wrong too. So maybe, there's a bit of fault on both parts. So it's a matter about just listening, when you're making those sort of calls. But in terms of going back to the planning day, so there might be a couple of other things that we would potentially cover, and not that we wouldn't cover all these, I can assure you. It's just a selection of some ideas, but we might do a training session on maybe some new software or a new process that we wanted to implement.
Or legislation. Yeah, changes.
Yeah. And then the other thing we might do is if we wanted to change something in the business, you hear about change management. This was a good way of having the team together and saying, look, this is something that we're changing, this process, or how we're setting the business up, or we're renovating, or you're all going to be moving seats, or whatever it might be. This is a change we're implementing. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're doing it. What concerns, any questions that you might have. So what you don't want is everyone then going, bitching behind your back about the changes that you're making, just to give them that forum to put forward their concerns. There might be some things that we hadn't thought of that we'd need to address. So it was all very open that, so that they could understand that, oh, yes, there's a change. They're listening to me. I have some concerns and they're happy to answer those.
I think on that, it takes away the opportunity, because if you deliver it to one person and then by the time it gets to the 5th person, it's changed dramatically. So I appreciate that everyone hearing at the one time is great.
Yeah, definitely.
I do have another question in relation to what you do, like implementing, okay, the day's finished. What do you recommend?
Oh, yes.
Because I know that I'll share with our listeners that we used to have we'd either have a whiteboard and
butcher's paper
and we'd take photos or rip off, but we'd take away that data.
So we'd always have an action plan. Out of these days we would have an action plan, And so sometimes it would be typed up. We'd have our assistant Tracy typing as we go, or we would write up stuff, and it might be because we might be writing up things because teams within the team might be coming up with ideas. So we'd write their ideas down. We'd take photos of it all, and then we'd put it into some sort of document that we would share in some way with the team, whether it was the whole thing or part of it. But what we'd definitely come out with was an action plan with what we're going to action, what we're going to do, what the time frame is, and who's going to do it and when it's done. And that would just form our plan for the next, often it'll be probably 3 months of things that we're going to do. There might be some bigger things that we plan to do, in 6 months or something like that, but often it would be things that we'd want to implement or update, fix in the next few months. And it was important that we had the who on there so we could keep that person accountable, because it wouldn't always be you or me doing those things. It might be an administrator or maybe head of department, or maybe someone within a department said, look, I want to take responsibility for that, or we think that they're really good at XYZ. So like, Sam, you'd be great at that. Could you take that on? Are you happy to do that? Yes, I am. Fantastic. So it gives that person a little bit of leadership and something different in their role that they're going to take control of. And we've got that action plan, and then, at their catch-ups or, we're walking around the office and say, hey, how are you going with that? This is the date we want it done by. I
think it's important too that, you go to, it's a big event to go and plan and deliver and have a successful planning day. So I think the last thing you want to do is walk away and not implement, or not, especially for your team. I think they could then feel a bit deflated and a little bit unheard, and it can be a little bit of a waste of time. So you really have to be keen to implement the change and really focused post planning day.
100%. 100%. And just keep that momentum going. One of the things that we do have, and I've talked to you about it in a couple of past podcasts, is we have an end of financial year checklist that we've put together. This checklist will be a great way of helping you plan your planning day. So it's got a bit of information. You may not go through the whole thing, but if you want to download that checklist, it is free. Just go to businessbydesign.net.au/EOFY checklist, and you can download that checklist for free. And that will, and look, even if you happen to be listening to this podcast later in the year or something and it's not into financial year, it's probably still worth downloading, because, it's got lots of things in there that you can have a think about and planning for your planning day if you're doing one at the end of the year or the start of the year. So that is something that is worthwhile looking at. And the other thing that is worthwhile noting, I think, as I guess we're sort of wrapping up a little bit, is if you're sort of interested in looking at the year ahead and really making a difference for the next 6 months, we do have our boot camp that we've got coming up that covers a lot of these topics in a lot more detail. Leadership and culture is one of those topics I think is really important, and the planning day is part of that. We also show sort of how to set out a planning day and things like that. So if you want a bit more information on it and you're really sort of ready to take that next step, that might be something that you think about, is that 8-week boot camp.
Fantastic. Well, I've loved this little chat with you, Tamara, and I hope our listeners have enjoyed it just as much. And yes, I think there's a lot more gold inside our boot camp around all this sort of stuff. So I encourage our listeners to have a look at that, and certainly the EOF checklist is great. And
the boot camp, if you want to have a look at more on the boot camp, it's businessbydesign.net.au/bootcamp, and it's got all the information on there, and there is a fee for it, but I think it's pretty reasonable compared, for the information and what you get. And I would love to see some of our listeners on there.
Fantastic. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure, Tamara. Thank you, and thank you to our listeners, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
See you.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Her Business by Design podcast. We appreciate your support, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, we would be grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and share this episode with others who might find it valuable.
To access our free customer journey checklist or sign up for our free 3-day webinar on how to organically grow your business by creating an awesome customer journey, simply visit our website businessbydesign.net.au and follow the links.
We also value your input. If you have any suggestions for future episode topics, please leave a comment, send us an email at hello@businessbydesign.net.au or connect with us on Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn.
Thank you again for joining us today. We're Elaine and Tamara and we can't wait to have you back for our next episode.